The cowboy had lost many things in his life, but nothing stung quite like losing his horse. Out on the open plains, a man's horse wasn't just an animal, it was his livelihood, his companion, his way of survival. That morning, when he awoke and found the rope cut loose and the hoofprints leading into the hills, his heart sank heavier than the desert sun. He searched high and low, calling out following trails, but by nightfall his boots dragged through the dust with no sign of his loyal steed. He sat by the fire, staring into the flames, feeling the loneliness of the wide prairie pressing against him. But fate, mysterious, wild, and untamed, wasn't finished with him yet. At dawn, when the mist still clung to the valley and the first light kissed the ridges, he heard a familiar sound, the rhythmic beat of hooves. He stood, squinting into the horizon, and his breath caught. His horse was coming back, mane flying, muscles rippling, but it was not alone. On its back sat a woman unlike any he had ever seen. She was young, fierce-eyed, draped in the traditional dress of her Apache people, a single feather tucked into her braided hair, her back straight and proud as though she were born to ride. For a moment the cowboy wondered if he was still dreaming. The woman reined the horse in front of him, her gaze steady, unreadable, yet carrying a weight of untold stories. He tipped his hat, words fumbling on his tongue, but she spoke first. Her voice was soft yet strong, like a river running through stone. She said his horse had come wandering into her people's land, weary and hungry, and while the others argued whether to keep it, she felt a pull, as though the animal carried a destiny not yet complete. She tended it, fed it, soothed it, and when dawn broke, the horse wouldn't let anyone else near but her. That was why she came, not to return a stolen horse, but to follow a call she couldn't ignore. The cowboy, hardened by years of dust and sorrow, felt something stir in him he hadn't felt for a long time. Respect, admiration, and perhaps even hope. They stood facing each other in the silence of the waking prairie. And though their worlds were different, his cattle drives and long trails, hers of tribal ways and ancestral bonds, they both knew the land spoke the same language to their hearts. He invited her to share his fire, to rest after her journey. She accepted with the graceful nod of one who needed no permission but offered honor in return. As the day stretched on, he listened as she spoke of her people, of traditions carried by generations, of the songs sung under starlit skies. In return, he shared his struggles, his losses, the weight of being a man in a world that often took more than it gave. Slowly, in that exchange, a bridge was built, not of wood or stone, but of trust. By evening, when the fire crackled again and shadows lengthened across the valley, the cowboy looked at her and realized his horse had not simply returned, it had brought him a gift, far greater than he could have ever expected. In her presence, he saw not just beauty, but strength, resilience, and the reminder that even in a life filled with loneliness, fate could ride in on the back of a horse and change everything. From that day forward, the cowboy was no longer just a man with a horse. He was a man with a story, a bond, and perhaps the beginning of a love carved out of the wilderness itself. And just as the horse had found its way back, so too did the cowboy find his way back to something human, something tender, something worth living for. My friends, if this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in fate, in love, and in the wild magic of the West, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us for more tales of courage, romance, and destiny under the wide open skies. The cowboy hadn't expected her to stay. But when morning came and the sky stretched wide and golden over the valley, she was still there, sitting cross-legged by the ashes of the fire, braiding a strip of leather with delicate fingers. The horse stood tethered close, calm in her presence, as though it had always belonged to her. He tipped his hat in greeting, and she returned it with a small nod, her eyes unreadable but not unkind. For a man who had lived most of his years in solitude, her silence didn't feel awkward, it felt grounding, as though she carried with her a patience he had long forgotten how to keep. As they shared a simple meal of dried meat and bread, she began to tell him more. Her name was Naya, which meant renewal, and though she spoke with pride of her people, there was a shadow in her words. Losses endured, traditions threatened, the weight of a world shifting against them. The cowboy listened intently, realizing that her strength was not only in her courage, but in the quiet dignity of carrying burdens too heavy for most. He felt humbled, as though the land itself had chosen to teach him something through her presence. When he saddled his horse to ride out and check the fences along his ranch, she surprised him by mounting up alongside, moving with natural ease, guiding the animal as though she'd been born in the saddle. They rode in silence at first, the rhythm of hooves on dirt and the call of distant hawks filling the air, but then she began to hum an old song, low and haunting, that wrapped around him like a spell. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. It was about journeys, about survival, about finding one's way home. By the time they returned, he realized the fences hadn't been the point. It was the ride, the shared rhythm, The simple truth of two lives moving in the same direction, if only for a time. That evening, as the sun burned orange and dipped behind the hills, Naya stood by the fire and looked at him steadily.